claw machines, and part of the criticism said I should teach a shtickle Kedushas Levi. So let's learn a shtickle Kedushas Levi. Why not? All right. So homily for Pesach right here. This is about the Seder. We're already past the Seder. Let's go a little further down and find. They don't have the English here. They do have the English here. Well, I don't need the English. Where are we? Let's find something about Chol Hamoed, or about Pesach. B'meit seis chameretz Mitzrayim and the flows. This is a misprint because it should say Ki meit seis chameretz Mitzrayim and the flows. So, like Sefer Micha, Parak Zoyin, Pasuk Tes Vov, in the book of Micah, chapter 7, verse 15, it says, like the days when you left from the land of Egypt, I will show you wonders. V'voyer Pasuk Ekya She'ekya. So in Shmais Gimel Yudalid, Exodus 3:14, it says, I will be what I will be, as the name of God. A lot of people translate it as I am what I am, but actually
that was Popeye.
Yeah, Ekya is in the future tense. So we explain this verse, I will be what I'll be mashal. So there's a parable to explain this. So there was a pauper who in one shot made a profit of $10,000, let's say. He won $10,000, or he did a job, he got $10,000, or someone gave him $10,000, whatever it is, he got the $10,000, and he had a tremendous pleasure from the $10,000, right? And then a little later he got $20,000, right? So he was very happy, he had a lot of pleasure, a lot of delight from this $20,000. But even though it was twice as much money as the $10,000, he couldn't compare that pleasure to the pleasure that he received going from 0 to 10,000 as from going 10,000 to 30,000. You cannot compare it. And to the point where that $20,000 was like nothing compared to the joy that he felt from $10,000. So if he wanted to feel that joy that he experienced when he received the $10,000, he'd need millions of dollars to experience that pleasure that he received from that first 10,000. But nimshal. So what is the nimshal? What is the moral of the story? What is this parable hinting to? Kadosh Baruch Hu pada Yisana Mitzrayim min Beis Avodim. God redeemed us from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And God made for us miracles and wonders. That was like the $10,000, right? But at some point in the future, and we hope it'll be very soon, God is going to do miracles and wonders for us again, like the prophet prophesied, that like the days when you left Egypt, I will show you wonders. But it would seem like when you compare to the original Tanakh, the original pleasure, the original delight of the exodus from Egypt, what can compare to that? Meaning, we had many great miracles and salvations throughout our history, many of which took place on Pesach. Like when Sennacherib's army was smitten in the middle of the night by an angel in the days of Chizkiyahu Melech, in the days of my holy ancestor King Hezekiah. And that's a powerful thing. Yet it pales in comparison to the miracle of the Exodus. Even though the whole Jewish people was saved on that night by that miracle of the angel knocking down the whole Assyrian army, we don't think of that great miracle the way we think about the miracle of the Exodus, right? So that's what we mean, that compared to that first taste, that first experience, it's very hard. Most things that come subsequently pale in comparison. It has to be really big. It has to be $1 million enjoyment in order to compare and contrast with the first one. So you would think Mashiach comes, right? All right, no. Compared to Exodus from Egypt, what's it going to be? Kedushas Baruch Hu yasimanu kol kach nisam niflos ad ein misbar. But the truth is that just like the prophet prophesied, that like the days when you left Egypt, I'll show you wonders. That means that God is going to do with us such great miracles and wonders that are innumerable and incalculable. That even if you would compare it to that initial delight, the pleasure of the Exodus, the redemption that will take place soon when the Messiah comes will be much greater in capacity and in quantity and in quality even than the original Exodus, to the point where, since we're already elevated by the Exodus, we will experience the greatness of the coming of Mashiach in a manner that will outweigh the original Exodus, to the point where we will once again experience what the people experienced during the Exodus. That's what the Navi Micha, the prophet Micah, is saying, that when we're comparing it like the days when you left Egypt, meaning that even in comparison and contrasting with the original delight and pleasure that we experienced from leaving Egypt, the delight and pleasure of the Messiah's coming will be so magnified that it will be like the same experience like leaving Egypt, meaning it'll be the comparison of the person who was a pauper and made $10,000, and that's the exodus from Egypt, leaving this Golus. Mashiach coming will be $1 million exodus. So that's compared against the initial original experience of the Exodus. So that's what it means. Aren and Nefluas, I will show you miracles. V'ze'ekya asher ekya. That when it says I will be that which I will be, meaning it's magnified. When it says I will be that which I will be, that original ekya, that name I will be magnified exponentially. It will be cubed from the original Ekia. That's the concept of Ekia, Asher Ekia, that it's a mathematical equation of an exponential expanse of this name of God, which is one of the higher names of God Kabbalistically, from God's names. Kabbalistically, the name Ekia is in the sphere of Keser. And so when you say Ekia Asher Ekia, it's an expanse of Keser exponentially to an exponential rate of Keser, of that type of Hisgalus, that type of revelation that's going to take place when the real Mashiach comes. So then, Heilige Verditche Veruf, Chisse, you're going to learn about excuse me. He goes on to explain another explanation of this idea of Ekia Asher Ekia, of I will be what I will be. That's how God revealed himself in Egypt, that he says, I will be what I will be, meaning to say that what I will be at the Exodus, I will be at the end times when Mashiach comes, meaning that it will be that much of an exponential revelation of the glory of the kingdom of heaven, of the Skalos Koid Malchus Shemayim. So Vivoyer Tam Lama Nikra Chag Pesach. So he asks, why is this holiday called Pesach, Passover? What's the reason for this name? We have to understand, why did God take us out from Egypt? It's not just a meaningless freedom, because that's not freedom, that's still slavery. I remember hearing, not going to name the country because I don't want to disrespect it. There was a certain point in history, a certain country was removed from, it's a very ancient land, and they had a dictator who was a very brutal dictator who ruled over that country. And eventually the dictator was deposed and executed. And when the dictator was executed, the people went out looting. And they said, why are you looting? They said, what do you mean? Now we're free, so everything's free. So they went and took whatever they wanted, because they didn't have true freedom. They were enslaved to this desire to steal. And that's what Chazal say very famously in the Pirkei Avos. Ein lecha ben charen alami she'osek b'talmud Torah. That no one is free except the one who engages in Torah study. That's the true freedom. Because learning Torah and keeping the Torah elevates us to a level of authentic freedom, where we can, if we attach to it in an authentic way and we work on ourselves, we can be freed from lusts and burdens that enslave us. And we can control those things, not that we are enslaved to them, but we can actually use those things. If we use them the proper way, we can use it to serve God. And so, like Pesach is a good example of that. People, they have a strong desire to eat, and it's an overwhelming desire. Food is such Rabbi Nachman explains this in depth, because that's attached to the original sin was through eating in the Garden of Eden. It's not the Garden of Eating, but the Garden of Eden, of Idunim, of delights, and also of time, the Chol Idon V'Idon, of connecting to time in that way. But the point that I'm saying here is that Pesach gives us the opportunity to conquer and control and be in charge and master the inyan of achila, the concept of eating, of food, to the point where we are no longer enslaved to food, but we are the masters of food. And so that's why the diet of Pesach is the central attribute of Pesach. But more than that is that the act of eating the matzah on the Leil Seder is the mitzvah, is the avodah. It's not only that Pesach is essentially a sort of the way the secular world would look as a fast, that it's refraining, but also that eating the matzah itself is an engagement where we actually make a bracha al achilas matzah, which is akin to al achilas kodshim. That when we had the Beis Hamikdash and we ate korbanos, we made such a bracha of al achilas kodshim, and we have a bechina of that in Arnik Shabbos and other mitzvahs that we do by eating and having a Suda and Chol Hamoed and all these things, and eating good food on special occasions. But Lamaisa, Bizman Hazeh, the only bracha that we have is of Al Achilas. Bizman Hazeh, that there's an actual bracha on the eating, is by eating the matzah. And by refraining from the chometz, we're demonstrating our freedom in the matzah, in the Yontiv of Pesach, and that we take through the whole year. It gives us the energy. The old Belzer Rav used to say that's why in Israel they have a saying, Hakol B'Seder. That's a popular Israeli saying, meaning is everything in order, or everything is in order. But the concept that the Belzer Rav brought out there is that Mamish Hakol B'Seder, that everything depends on the Pesach Seder. The power of the Pesach Seder, we invest the energy that lasts us through the whole year and sometimes through our whole lives. But in any event, we continue with what it says here. Why is this Yontif called Pesach? So God took us out from Egypt in order to serve Him. So that's the purpose, like we were saying. The purpose of freedom is not freedom in and of itself. It's not an end in of itself, but a means to the end of serving God. Meaning that when Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moses presented himself to the Pharaoh, he said, "Let my people go, so they would serve the Lord on His mountain." The purpose of freedom is to serve God. The purpose of liberty is to serve God. And that's essential to the American ideology of liberty. This land of liberty is for a purpose. It's not hefker. It's in order to give us the opportunity to be elevated on our own. I often give a mashal. It's coming up in a few weeks. The Muslim communities will be observing Ramadan, right? And I was reading an article from a Muslim in America. He said the nafkamina, the difference that we have between, he said, being a Muslim, let's say in Saudi Arabia, or in Iran, or in America. Because in Saudi Arabia, a lot of people, they work all night and they sleep all day, the whole Ramadan. What's the big deal to keep Ramadan when everybody around you is keeping Ramadan? But when he is in America and he has to go to work, he has to be up all day, and he has to fast every day. It's an avodah, right? It's an act of worship, and it's hard work. When everyone else around you, they're Christians and Jews and secular and whatever else, and he's keeping his religion. And the same thing for us as Jews. we could see everybody else. It's very easy in Israel. Everybody's keeping Pesach. It's against the law to sell chametz for a Jewish store in Israel. You could get a ticket for selling chametz. It makes it very easy. But for us in America, all right, maybe if you live in Muncie or in Brooklyn, it also could be pretty easy. But for the rest of us, it's a certain avoida. I remember as a kid, I would go. We always kept Pesach in my home. And one of the kids, when I went to public school, one of the kids, he always had a birthday party, and it invariably fell Pesach. And all the kids would be eating pizza, and I'd be eating matzah. And it gave me a certain stolz, to be honest. Ooh, wow. That I knew I was a Yid. Even when I wasn't Shemer Shabbos, but there was something, Pesach, I was eating matzah, and they were eating pizza, and I wouldn't touch the pizza. And it gave me a certain strength as a Yid. And I didn't need my mother to be over my shoulder, making sure she sent me some matzah, and I took care of that myself. I was 7, 8, 9 years old. Anyway, the reason why I'm saying that is that that's the beauty of freedom. I mentioned in a video earlier that someone was criticizing the idea of libertarianism because they said that essentially people can, of their own free will, choose very negative ways to make a living, and out of their own free will. But the truth is, and that would be perfectly fine. But the truth is that essential idea is not the point. The point is that we have the opportunity to make the right decisions, and not have the nanny state over our shoulder telling us you got to do this, you got to do that. You make your own decisions, and then it's much more valuable. That's the whole idea of free will. The Mekubalim explain that when you get something that you don't work on, it's Nahama de Ksufa. It's the bread of shame, the bread of embarrassment, because you didn't work for it, so you just got it for free. What's the big deal? You don't appreciate that. But when you work hard for something and you earn it, then you appreciate it. So this is the idea of freedom, that God freed us from Egypt so we could serve Him, because the avoida is only a true avoida if we're free. Kadei lekabel esoteric Kedusha, and also He freed us from Egypt, so we should receive the Torah, because we wouldn't be able to receive the Torah if we were slaves. Even in halacha, a slave does not have. Why do we make a bracha shelo yisni ovid? We make a bracha thanking God He didn't make us a slave, because we have more mitzvahs as free people. That's what it says in Exodus chapter 3 verse 12, which is 2 verses before this Ekya Sherekya. It says, ye shall serve God on this mountain. But you would think that really we need the Torah so much. How can we even survive? How can we live? How can we exist without the Torah? And so really, we should have received the Torah first and then left Egypt. But God skipped over the receiving of the Torah, passed over the receiving of the Torah. That's Ekya. That's how it will be. Lashon Asid, like we said, it's in the future tense. The 10 Commandments begin in Exodus chapter 20, verse 2. I'm the Lord thy God who took you out of the land of Egypt. This is a very famous question. Why did the 10 Commandments say that I'm God who took you out of Egypt? It should have said I am God who created the heavens and the earth. So the answer is that the Israelites, when they left Egypt, they were recognizing God and experiencing God because He took them out of Egypt. And God is totally one with the Torah. And just like they were experiencing and understanding the Creator because He took them out of Egypt, because of the exodus from Egypt, so too, if that's how they understood God as their Redeemer who took them out from Egypt, so too, that was the only way that they could understand the Torah, is through the Exodus, and not through creation itself, because they did not experience the creation, they experienced the Exodus. In the future, God is going to do such incredible miracles for us that are innumerable and incalculable. And then we're going to be able to understand and experience God on a much higher level. And obviously, since God and Torah are totally unified and totally one, so we'll understand the Torah on a higher level. That's what my holy ancestor, the prophet Isaiah, says. Yeshayahu Navi, in Isaiah 51 verse 4, it says that a new Torah will come out from me. And this will be in the future very soon. We're praying and hoping. It'll also be like it was in the original time when God redeemed us from Egypt. So too God will redeem us and do miracles and wonders for us. So then we will experience the Torah in a new way. Doesn't mean there's going to be a new Torah. It's going to be the same old Torah. Give me that old time religion. Nothing's going to be new. It's not like the Christians say a New Testament. No, it's not going to be a new covenant. It's going to be a new understanding of the original covenant, because what's old will be new. Meaning that's what it means when our Chazal explain that it says that which I speak unto you today, it says in Deuteronomy, that what does it mean today? This means every day when you learn Torah, it should be like it's brand new. You should be so excited to learn the Torah. It should be like something brand new. And so that's what it means. The Torah will be renewed. We'll experience the Torah, the same old Torah will experience in a new way. Canal, like we said about and that experience, that pleasure, that delight that we are destined to have in the future, that will be on that level of Ekya, that level of experience that I will be. And that's what it means. I will be what I will be. That will be exponentially magnified and expanded. This experience of the Exodus and of the understanding of God and the understanding of Torah. I'd like to maybe find one more short vort, because I don't want to have zugas. I don't want to have two things. So we had two Torahs. We need a third one. So here's a good one. It's not so short, but I think it's kedai. It'll be interesting, but maybe, probably it'd be better that we should make a separate video, because it's already a half hour. So we'll stop this video and we'll upload it, and then we'll start again. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. We'll see you later. How do I stop?